Hi, I'm Pat from Wicklow Willow, and you're very welcome to Glendalough on this beautiful sunny morning. You'll hear the birds and even the woodpecker behind me rattling away, and I hope to stay running right through this little video. So today we're going to talk about Bealtaine and Mayday and the duality of the associated festivals. So Bealtaine is from the Irish, meaning bright fire possibly, and Mayday is from the broader European context. Now, this was used to promote Christianity over pagan Ireland, and uniquely in Ireland, both pagan and Christian festivals melded together. It was St. Patrick's way and other clergy of bringing Christianization to a very, very pagan Ireland who didn't want to let go of their pagan traditions. St. Patrick is famous for using the shamrock to describe the Holy Trinity. He's also famous for overlaying the sun on the Roman cross to give us our Celtic cross. Now, the coming of the sun is what Bealtaine is about. It's about celebrating the return of light and growth, of planting and pasturage, of the fattening of animals, and of ensuring that there's a fruitful bounty in the year to come. So as light wanes on April 30th, on the evening of May Day, that is May Eve, and that is when Bealtaine begins. There's lots of parades associated with Bealtaine that take place all over Ireland still to this day, but in former days they were much more common. Bealtaine is one of the cross-quarter festivals of Ireland, like Imbolc and Lunasa, but also like Samhain or Halloween. It's seen as a liminal time when the other world was much, much closer to the real world. Fire has a big association with Bealtaine. It's involved in many, many customs. So the return of the sun ensures light, and therefore its light is brought forth by fire. Bonfires were lit all over Ireland on hilltops, the main fire being lit on Ishnock in Westmeath. This was lit traditionally by the High King near the stone called Alnamurin. All of the elements associated with fire, ash and smoke, they all had protective powers. They were sacred around this time. Cattle and people jumped over fire. Cattle were run between two bonfires or run around a bonfire in these hills to ensure that they got protection from the fire. The hearth fire was never let go out traditionally in an Irish cottage. All year round it was kept burning. But on May Eve, the hearth fire was let go out. It was let burn out, and then it was relit from the bonfire that was burning outside. Fire and smoke were not allowed to leave the house at this time, because all your good luck left the house with it if it got out through the door. It was never given away. You couldn't call to a farmhouse and look for a light in around Bealtaine, not even for your pipe, or you'd be viewed very, very suspiciously. Spring flowers were a big association with Bealtaine. Flowers were very important at this time of the year, and traditionally they still are. And in our video making workshops, you'll be looking at making flower garlands, of course. They were the first life of the year, these spring flowers, the first growth, and they were seen as vital to celebrating Bealtaine and regrowth. They were used as part of rituals to cleanse the home and to bless your livestock to ensure that they were safe for the coming year. Flowers were woven into garlands and posies. They were attached above doorways and on windowsills. The petals were plucked and spread over the thresholds and again on windowsills so that evil could not get by them. Cowslips, primroses, gorse was a big Bealtaine flower. Marigolds are very popular. They were all used to celebrate Bealtaine. In later times, bluebells were seen as the Marian flower, and they were incorporated with part of the month-long celebration in Marian shrines and in praying spaces and homes. Yellow flowers were particularly potent as they were thought to repel bad fairy magic. Now, there's good fairy magic and bad fairy magic that we'll learn as we go through this. But the yellow flowers were particularly sought after in repelling bad fairy magic. Flowers were also left at holy wells on May Day, because the holy wells blessed them and made them particularly potent. They were left to soak overnight sometimes. They should have been picked before dusk on May Eve or before dawn on Bealtaine morning to ensure that you had flowers with dew on them on a May Day morning, making them even more potent. But that depends on which part of the country you're in. Some believe that tiny fairies lived in the flowers, and that when you picked these flowers and brought them to your home, that these good luck fairies instill good luck into your home for the coming year. Another association with Bealtaine, and there's lots of it behind me, is water. Holy wells were guarded against fairies around Bealtaine time. They didn't want the fairies fouling or poisoning the water with bad powers, I suppose. Farmers who had a holy well in their land tended to stay all night to guard the well against fairies, but also to ensure that they got the first drink of the holy well water at sunrise the following morning. It was very important to get this, as it was the most blessed of the waters. Dew was another way to get water and another association with Bealtaine. It was traditional to go out and wash your face in the dew, to gather water off the grasses and to walk in it with your bare feet. These all brought curative and restorative powers that would set you up again for the coming year. Dew was also sought for bad luck by the hags, and we will talk about that in a little while. But dew was a liminal resource, because it was neither rain nor sea nor lake nor river. It was a liminal water that spread and arrived and was gone within a little time, so it was seen as particularly as special. And again, coming back to the hags, they would gather dew just to do evil with. There's lots of old tales in the National Folklore Collection of old women seen pulling ropes through the dew to gather the dew on the ropes, and they would be chanting, "Come all to me." And this chant allowed them to steal butter from people in the vicinity. So yes, dew could be used for good or bad, and preferably for good. Now we'll talk about trees a little bit. The hawthorn trees are associated with holy wells. They're called a maybush, or maybe a rag tree, or a wishing tree. And little bits of cloth and paper, cords would be tied to the tree, and a wish or a curse or even a prayer would be made when this was done. And these were seen as offerings to the fairy folk who lived in or around the area. And that brings us to trees. The hawthorn is a very famous tree associated with Bealtaine, as is the whitethorn. They usually bloom around Mayday, so they hold ancient associations with Bealtaine for this reason. It was thought that the heavier the bloom on these trees, the better the harvest in the coming year would be, and the more fruitful the year would be. It also became ritual to decorate a maybush, sometimes around holy wells, but often if you didn't have a maybush or a holy well near you, you would actually put one outside your house, or grow one outside your house. If there wasn't one there again, you would cut down one and bring it to your house. It would be erected outside your house for the Bealtaine celebrations. And then on these maybush, it was traditional to hang ribbons and shells, garlands made from eggshells that were held over from Easter. You would hang strips of paper, and then you would decorate them in flowers. And sometimes they would put rushlights or candles onto these maybushes, just so they were lit up each night before Bealtaine. Mayboughs were another thing that were common. Depending on the part of the country you were in, you would take a maybough and decorate it with flowers and bring it into your house. This could be put over your door, put on your windowsills. Sometimes they were put up in the rafters or on top of your roof. Sycamore was a very lucky one to make a wreath or something out of. It brought very good luck to the house. Again, this was hung in or around the house door or up in the rafters. Whitethorn was really well known for its good luck, but it was never to be brought indoors. So if you had whitethorn near you, you could bring a bough of it or bring the tree, but you could not bring it into your house. That brought bad luck. Maybushes were also put up in villages and in towns across Ireland. Sometimes they were put up at crossroads, so people from around could decorate them communally. And there became rivalry between villages, where people might sneak off and rob the maybush from a neighbouring village or from a neighbouring crossroads and put it up somewhere else. So they were often lit with candles and rushes. They must have looked incredible on a dark evening before street lighting. So in general then, some of the other traditions then that were associated with Bealtaine were all concerned with protecting the home. People didn't sell, loan or borrow anything on May Eve or on May Day. It was bad luck to do so. If you gave the fire out of your house, as we talked about, you would be giving away your good luck. It was the same with anything. You couldn't get sugar or butter from your neighbours on May Eve or May Day, because again, they were giving away their good luck by doing so. And again, anyone who was asking for a light of a pipe to take the fire from the house out, it was a no-no, and it was viewed very suspiciously. The person could be ostracised for doing so. It was a time to protect your butter production. There was a fear that old women, the hags, the Cailleach would come and take your butter for the year, using fairy magic. And they were associated with hares. If you saw a hare on Mayday, it was seen as very, very bad luck. I know my wife saw one last year and she still tells me she's had bad luck. But the hares would turn into hags. apparently. So people would actually go out and shoot hares on Mayday rather than have them sighted around their land. But you couldn't kill them with an ordinary bullet or a lead bullet. You had to use a silver sixpence or silver shot, and people would go out and shoot hares using it. Lots of tales in the National Folklore Collection about people apparently shooting hares and following the blood trail, only to arrive at an old woman's cottage, and upon entering they'd find an old woman with a bleeding leg or a sore leg inside. These were seen as hags who would be stealing butter from the normal households. Yeah, they were taught to travel house to house on Mayday, stealing butter from people's milk churns, and it was very much frowned upon. There's the other tale of the old woman with the rope who was collecting the dew and doing her incantation. Again, this was associated with stealing butter. Stealing butter was a really frowned upon thing to do, as this was taking the fat from the people, the nourishment. Most homes, as mentioned, had a holy altar inside in their house, and these will be decorated for the month of May as a Marian shrine, dedicated to the Blessed Virgin Mary. Yellow flowers, but principally blue flowers, were the flower of choice for the Marian sort of remembrance. So all in all, they were a reminder of how our pagan traditions melded with our Christian traditions to sort of make this melting pot of Irish religious customs. It's how Christianity brought Irish people from the 5th century, how they brought us into Christianity through using our own age-old pagan belief systems. So that's all I'm going to tell you about Bealtaine and Mayday traditions today. I hope you've learned a bit, and if not, I hope you recall a lot of this from your childhood, because these customs have died out largely, but some of them are still alive. And if you do have recollections of other customs, please take the time to write them down. Make sure and record them. They're worth preserving and keeping for the next generation. This is Pat from Wicklow Willow, thanking you for coming along on this journey with us through our Mayday garland making and through this little talk about Bealtaine and Mayday. And we hope to see you again soon. Thank you.